Um, so I have a question starting for you, Paul. As we've touched on, there's a lot involved in this process. There's an expectation, there's a requirement even for the community groups to reflect other plans like the National Planning Framework, the Local Development Plan, and any locality plans that cover their area. But also, it's good practice to have a look at any other plans like housing strategies, or if there's a new national park, as there is in Dumfries and Galloway being proposed, they need to look at that. Are there any active travel plans and that sort of thing? What other plans are for their area? So that's quite a big ask for volunteers, but also that community engagement, which is extremely involving, especially when you're wanting to make sure you've reached all the lesser heard voices as well, and you have to plan different engagements that reach different groups in different ways. So yeah, there's a lot on volunteers. So how can we, as support organisations, build the capacity, so the knowledge, skills, confidence of communities to engage with and develop local place plans?
That is a tricky question. I mean, in the ideal scenario, there should be support available there within, say, for example, a local authority that maybe has a community development team that and normally you can rely on a community development worker to be able to come out and to help you with that process. And certainly in East Ayrshire and the Vibrant Communities team that's there, they had development officers who would go out and work with them, each of the East Ayrshire communities to develop local place plans, and their support was invaluable. And they were doing all the things that you say. They're making the community aware of the health strategy for the area, the various the local outcome improvement plan, any locality plans that might be there already, and really just to kind of tap into, as someone doing that piece of work already, then maybe as a plan we don't need to focus on that kind of thing. So I think that when you've got a development officer, that's really useful with community development experience. That's in today's in the last 10 years of cuts, we don't have as many community development officers in and around local authorities anymore. So you've got potentially you've got access to the third sector interfaces, which have development officers, for example, Beth, who's kind of leading on this kind of support. So there's support there. You've also got national agencies like SURF, like Community Ownership Scotland, Community Ownership Support Scotland, the Heritage Fund for funding, the various CVOs that are in the area. So there are national agencies, but to some extent, sometimes we're expecting communities to be able to do some of this themselves as well, and within SCDC, my organisation, the Scottish Community Development Centre, we have accessible resources for communities to get going with community engagement, to get going with some of the things that they need to think about in terms of a planning process as well. So we have useful materials, and we've even got certain programs where we'll support community groups, in terms of developing local place plans as well. So it's often worth looking at what are called intermediaries like SCDC, who are not government but are in between government and communities, and who offer both support materials and potential support from workers on the actual ground as well. So there is support out there, but I think for me it's worth community groups thinking about what it is they need to do, thinking about best practice in community engagement, and to try and make it do with trying to get going with those kinds of things rather than waiting for an officer. And also there's the option from Nick's perspective of buying in support as well from consultants. Most are very good and obviously go by the reputation of the other areas that they've worked in, but most can can actually support the process. But what I often say is that when you are thinking about a consultant, it's the community who should lead, or the steering group who should lead, not the consultant themselves, because that'll be if they produce a plan, it'll be their plan, not the community's plan. So it's very, very important that you think about what it is that you want that consultant to do, and how they want that support. We often say it's communities, consultants on tap, not on top. To
That's
use
a
the
good one,
term.
Paul. I like that. Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Nick, if you had any thoughts on use of consultants or agencies to support capacity building.
No, I totally agree. They've got to be on tap rather than on top. And I think, as Paul was saying, don't automatically just give the responsibility for doing the whole thing to a consultant if that's what you're tempted to do. Think about which bits of it or what you need from them. So examples in my mind, Stratheric and Foyers wanted impartiality to help navigate through tensions in the community. The Black Isle, they wanted support with designing a community engagement process for a large area. Garter Khan, which is near Loch Lomond, they wanted specific help with schools engagement and preparing the plan itself. And the village I'm speaking to in Dumfries and Galloway just now, they're looking for impartiality and for producing the plan document to make sure it complies with all the, quite simple, but with all the regulations. But the point is, as Paul was saying, if you're clear with what you want the external support to help with, you'll stay in control of the process.
Yeah, and I think being clear of what is involved in the process can help you with that sort of skills audit as well, so that you can identify, you could well have some of the skills represented in your core team, for example, that you need, and then you can bring in some extra consultancy support for the areas where you have those skills gaps. I think some other tips that I've come across in terms of capacity building, I think that clear, non-jargon presentation of information and guidance is really important. So that's something we've been trying to build up on our website, and we do have a guide which has been developed for this area, but could be used across, please feel free, any area, to make use of it. And the other thing that I found has been a game changer has been whether there's been a funded local sort of staff role of some description. So whether that's an administrator or a comms officer, or a local person who can sort of project manage and have some paid time. Now, there is not a lot of funding and resource around for this, and it's actually getting tighter, I've found. But if that is possible for you, for example, if you're from an area which gets community benefits from renewables, and you're in a position to put somebody in post to lead on this, that's a local person that knows the area well, then that can really boost the capacity of the team.
Yeah.
Another thing that I found is peer learning. So learning from other communities that are partway along the process, putting people in touch with one another. So whether that's looking at, as you mentioned earlier, Nick, looking at other plans that have been registered around Scotland and getting some ideas from those to include in your local place plan. Having a chat, we had a couple of different presentations from groups that SCDC have supported at our recent peer support network, which are really helpful, because it was community groups that were further along in the process than those that were attending, and they could give them some practical advice about what it's been like on the ground, and I think also inspiration, because in the thick of the process it can become easy to lose sight of the goal and to get that inspiration of why are we doing this, what is the point, and what's it going to achieve. Some practical examples was really helpful to sort of boost confidence and in the process. And then as you mentioned, Paul, there are various national organisations. I think another one I'd add to that is the Community Map Scotland. It's program rather than an organisation, but it enables all community councils to access Parish Online, which is a mapping software, for free, and it actually has some additional support resources alongside it, so that you can fulfil that sort of mapping element of your local place plan. That's definitely worth looking into, Community Map Scotland. Yeah, so that just a few thoughts from me on capacity building.